Hey folks, welcome to the Ramble. Check it out. Webcam, kicking it old school. And this will be a ramble in every sense of the word because I just have a few very loosely formed thoughts to share with you today. They're about an issue that I've been thinking about for the last few days ever since a friend of mine mentioned something about this in a Facebook comment that I read. And I've been thinking about the ancient Greek story of Cassandra and how it applies to our current predicament in the United States in 2017 in a variety of ways. Cassandra, for those of you who don't know the story, was a woman who was given the gift of prophecy, but she was also cursed with the curse that no one would believe her warnings when she tried to warn them about the future. Nobody would listen to her. She would not be taken seriously. And boy, I bet there are a lot of women and people of color and LGBTQ plus folks and marginalized folks of all different categories who would really relate to the story of Cassandra. And I see this happening in my own little sort of local neighborhood in the atheist community, where a lot of us are still dealing with some of the fallout from MythCon in Milwaukee last week, and the ongoing, underwhelming, insufficient responses by some very prominent people in our community that we would have hoped would have done better in terms of condemning it before it happened, not just condemning it after the fact, because that's, it takes a little bit more courage and a little bit more of a proactive stance to see the train wreck coming and go, oh, that train's going to wreck. I should warn people. I should try to do something, instead of standing by on the sidelines and go, well, I'll just wait for the train to crash. Oh boy, that train crash. Boy, that was awful. What a terrible train wreck. I want it to be known that I thought that train wreck was going to be awful, and now I definitely think that train wreck is absolutely terrible. But the people who were warning that the train was going to wreck before it wrecked, they just need to chill out, okay? That's been something of the response in the aftermath of MythCon. People who said, oh no, I kind of figured it wasn't going to be good, but I didn't want to say anything until after it was over. But now that it's over, I'll say, oh yeah, it was terrible. Okay, well, thanks a lot. You really put your neck on the line there. And it goes beyond our little concerns in the atheist community as well. There have been people who have been saying for years that figures in the alt-right, figures sort of on the conservative side of our political spectrum, who women, black folks, other people of color, LGBTQ folks, people on the left politically, have been saying to people in the center, to people on the mainstream, news media, people with podcasts, people with radio shows, they've been saying, don't play with those guys. That's bad news. These are intolerant people. They're either white supremacists themselves, or they are very cozy with white supremacists. They're very interested in normalizing them and mainstreaming their ideas. Do not participate in that. Don't talk to them. Don't perpetuate this idea that they're just these harmless weirdos who just have these kooky ideas and it's just a matter of disagreement, and we should listen to them and hear what they have to say so we can show how foolish they are. Don't do that. That's not going anywhere good. And a lot of people in the mainstream, a lot of people in the center, they did that anyway. And now look what has happened. Not only do we have the Trump administration and all of its just the endless parade of horrors and embarrassments, but if you read the recent article on BuzzFeed News, you know that there are explicit connections between hate groups, white supremacist, white nationalist hate groups, organized hate in the United States, and the website Breitbart.com, which shouldn't be that big of a surprise because, one, Steve Bannon once described Breitbart as the platform for the alt-right, or that he aspired for it to be the platform for the alt-right, and the alt-right is just rebranded neo-Nazism. We should all know that. But even if you didn't catch that, how many people over the last several years have been warning everybody about Breitbart, about the alt-right, about Milo Yiannopolous, about Richard Spencer, saying these guys are not to be taken seriously. These guys are not to be treated with respect. They're not to be afforded the appearance of legitimacy. What they are promoting is dangerous. These people are intolerant. These people are on the side of hate and white supremacy and fascism. This is not good. How many people were warning all of us the entire time? And how often were they ignored? Like Cassandra. How many of them think of Cassandra themselves? How many of them think, God damn it, this must be what Cassandra felt like? Being able to see what would happen, being able to know, no, that's bad news. These people are not to be fucked with. These people, you need to push them back into the dark. You need to push them back into the margins. You need to stop letting people hand them a microphone. You need to pressure people to stop inviting them on stage. You need to pressure universities to change their policies so that they can't be taken advantage of, like Richard Spencer is doing right now to the University of Florida, taking advantage of their policy to allow outside people to rent space on their campus to hold events. And because they have that policy that anybody can rent space to hold an event on their campus, Richard Spencer is taking advantage of that and preparing to hold an event uninvited, but he's paying for it on the campus of the University of Florida, and the university is having to spend an extra $500,000 on security in advance of this event that they don't want, that they did not invite, that they would, I'm sure, rather not happen. But they are trapped by their own permissive policy in allowing people from the outside to rent space on their campus. We need to encourage schools to change these policies, to shut these people out, to push them as far into the margins as possible. And when they break the law or when they give us some kind of a legal opening, we need to take every opportunity we can to crush them. Like the Southern Poverty Law Center crushed the Ku Klux Klan in the 70s and the 80s by suing them for violating people's civil rights, by seizing on every possible legal opportunity they could to take them to court, to strip them of their assets, to wreck them, to destroy them as much as possible. That's what we need to be doing with the likes of Richard Spencer today. Not inviting them on talk shows. Not retweeting them and saying, oh, look at this goof, you know. Not inviting some of their recruitment team, like Carl Benjamin, also known as Sargon of Akkad, who Richard Spencer called one of the great gateways to his white nationalist movement. Not by inviting people like that to speak at skeptical conferences. No, we need to be demanding that these people not be invited. If they are invited, we need to be pressuring people to uninvite them or to at least not support the event that they are going to. We need to be pressuring people who we fancy for the most part as respected, legitimate people to not participate. If a conference invites a Carl Benjamin, then we need the Matt Dillahunties to say, I'm not coming. Not to say, oh, I'll be there and I'll watch. And then after the fact, I'll say, that was bad. No, say, I'm not coming before it happens. Make a stand. That's what we need. We need city councils and mayors to say, we're going to try to stop these people from doing their thing. We need police to stand on the side of the people, not the side of the hate mongers. We need to recognize these people for the threat that they are, for the threat that they have shown themselves to be. Not just in the distant past, not just in mid-20th century history, but in recent history. Heather Heyer, I believe the number now is 32. I mentioned in a Stephen Stuffy video last week the number of deaths, of murders linked to white supremacists in the United States so far this year. At the time I wrote that script, it was 28. I believe the number is now 32. 32 deaths this year so far linked to white supremacists. And I know that might seem like a drop in the bucket. You might think, oh, 32 people, what's the big deal? There are over 320 million of us in the United States. What's the big deal about 32 people? Well, it's 32 more than have been murdered by Antifa this year. And yet there are still people who will try to draw some equivalent and say, well, the Antifa protesters, the anti-fascists, they're really just as bad as the fascists because they show up and they start trouble instead of just letting the fascists peacefully conduct their march, as though there could be any such thing as a peaceful fascist. We need to snap out of this and we need to start listening to Cassandra, because Cassandra, in all her many forms, with all her many faces, has been warning us about this for years. And it's going so far pretty much exactly the way Cassandra has been telling us it's going to go. We need to snap out of it and start listening to Cassandra for a change. Hey folks, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe. And also please consider helping me to make more videos like this one by supporting this channel through Patreon. You can go to patreon.com/Steve Shives to become a patron of this channel. See you next time.